Good morning and welcome to Politics Social and Morning Brew. Now, you may have noticed there's been a change of regime, so in that interest, I have now taken over Morning Brew. Many of you will know me not by face, but by being Kat, Graham's better half. So, welcome everyone. Unfortunately, Graham is not too well this morning. Happily, he just gave a sound effect to demonstrate. So, yeah, many of you will have been at his absolutely insane marathon over election night and will have noticed that his voice was getting lower and croakier. So he's actually spent the weekend recovering from that, and he's starting to get there. But I'm giving him a little bit of time to get himself together so he can take over a bit later. But yes, new regime, loads of people in here. Oh, people pointing out that Graham's looking better today. Good to know there's a resemblance there. Okay, I'm not going to be great at reading these comments. How Graham reads them so fast is absolutely beyond me. Wow, respect. Graham has changed. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Okay, so amazing regime change. What struck me immediately is how the new cabinet has got some absolutely astounding appointments. So, I mean, the first one that we've been talking about is head of Timpson being in charge of prisons, and he is just a really, really amazing appointment. So, for anyone who doesn't know, he's been employing people who've left jail for many, many years in his company with a lot of success. He's turned lives around. He's really helped with people being rehabilitated. And he is all about making sure that you find the right solution for the right people. So Graham tells me that he gave a great speech in which he mentioned that around a third of the prison population probably should be there. And then others would be much better having some sort of rehabilitation solution, and about a third of them shouldn't really be there in the first place. So I think we can see some real changes in how prisoners are being dealt with. Someone said that Graham is gorgeous. Wow. Well, I think so too, actually. Okay, so we also have an actual barrister in charge of the Ministry of Justice. We've got Johnny Reynolds now continuing with his business brief, and he's already started discussions on the steelworks. I don't know how you say it. Is it Tata? Tata? Tata. He's already started discussions with them. David Lammy has already kicked off his tour of parts of the EU, outside the EU, starting to look at dealing with relations and picking up the baton on Ukraine. Having worked for David Lammy in a former life in the civil service, I'm absolutely thrilled to see him back in the cabinet. He's a really, really great Secretary of State. So, okay, those are my first thoughts. I'm hoping that Graham is now sort of feeling up to taking over, because I'm much more comfortable on the other side of the camera, let's face it. Thank you all for your lovely comments and how great Graham's looking this morning, and I hope you'll have a great day.
Oh, yay! Thanks, Kat. I'll give you a kiss, but I don't want to give you my lurgy. Hello, good morning, and welcome to Morning Brew with me, Graham Hughes. That was my beautiful partner, Kat, there, who was filling in for me while I was just getting stuff organised to say, hello, welcome, it's a new dawn, we're under a new government. The far right over the weekend have had their arses kicked well and truly, not just on this side of the channel, but also in France. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Yesterday, when the results came in from France, and also we won the football. Also, Lewis Hamilton won the Formula One at Silverstone. Honestly, it's just been Emma Raducanu didn't win her match at Wimbledon, which is a bit of a shame. But apart from that, it's weird. It's like this weird feeling like we're winning again. Do you remember what it felt like in 2012 when we actually won like loads of medals at the Olympics and we put on a really good show? I'm feeling like that again. And when Kat was saying, you know, the Labour front bench have just, well, Starmer and the Labour Party in general have just hit the ground running. They have got so many things to do. Michael Warner, thank you very much for the £2 super chat there. Saying thank you. Well done on your first stream, Kat. Awesome. New regime deserves a cuppa. Thanks very much to Paul as well. I'll sort that out. I'll sort that out after the show. Neil Brown says, boo, we want Kat back. Yes. I know that feeling. She was fabulous. Flip me saying, oh, Kat went downhill really fast. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Flint. Hey, Graham, if you can drink, you can work as well. Thank you, Kat, says Jane. Oh, thank you, Jane. I was astonished to see the Northwest Cambridgeshire went to Labour. It's usually a put a pig, red rosette on the pig's territory. A red. Surely that would be a blue. Flint Reed, thank you very much for the super chat. We demand your return, Kat. Kat's got actual work to get on with, though, unfortunately, for you and me, and her, I guess. I see Mary Trump sends her best wishes. Bless her. Hope USA can do something about Donald. Well, we'll be talking about that. Falling over laughing. Now I can read your comments, says Catherine. Peter Carter. I'm so envious. Let's hope Labour can do one decent thing and get us back into Europe. I can live my dream and retire to Lanzarote. Well, Wales, KTF 1969. I don't think we're going to get back into the EU in this Parliament. But what Labour are going to do, or what I believe Labour are going to do, and we've already seen this with what David Lammy's done with his whirlwind tour this weekend around various places in Europe, all the places that hate Russia, is resetting our relations with the EU, talking about security, talking about getting together militarily to fight the Russian aggression coming in from our eastern borders. We're going to see a sea change in our attitudes towards Europe. And this is the first foreign policy adjustment in probably since World War II that hasn't put America first. And that's good. We need to start putting Europe first, because Europe is our neighborhood. It's where we live. And it's always stayed with me this, when I was interviewing Tom Brooks from the professor of law and politics at Durham University. We did a few shows together, like Three Blokes in the Pub and then stuff on this channel. And it was really interesting because he told me he grew up in America. He's an American guy, and it wasn't until he came to the UK in his 30s that he first heard the term special relationship, referring to the US and the UK. Up till that point, he thought that it was just the US and Canada, yeah? But apparently not. No, it's the US and the UK, according to us, but perhaps not according to America. So I meant blue. I've been watching too much of the American elections, says Stephanie. That's all right. I've got me blue mug ready. I don't really want to talk about the American elections at the moment, as we've got a lot to go through in terms of what's going on in what's happened with our elections and the elections in France. So last night around 7:00 our time, 8:00 French time, the exit poll came out, and it showed that the right wing had well and truly had their arses handed to them by the left. And this was a remarkable turnaround from the first stage of voting, the first round of voting. And it was something where, like, we were hoping for it, but we didn't quite expect it. But do you know what? I'll tell you who did expect it. Oh, Phil Morehouse, Uncle Phil. He did a video. I don't know if you saw it. It was really funny because it was just after Macron had called the snap election. And I listened on the day, it was a couple of days later, and I listened to two video podcasts. And one of them was Phil, and the other one was The Rest is Politics with Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell. And Phil's video said, actually, Macron might be making the smart move here, which was not a popular opinion by any stretch of the imagination. But then on the other side, you had Rory Stewart saying Macron has lost his freaking mind. Why is he calling a snap election? He's gonna lose. He's gonna get his arse handed to him. This is insanity. And yep, Phil was right. it was a hell of a gamble for Macron to take. But what happened was, first round of voting, the Nazis did really well. Everyone went, oh, heck, don't want the Nazis running the country. It was bad enough last time in the 40s. And then they have a second round of voting in which the left-wing alliance and the centrist alliance, the Macron alliance, basically got everyone to vote tactically, sometimes by standing down candidates in certain constituencies, or just by getting, all the people who just want the anti-Nazi vote to coalesce around one candidate in each particular constituency, department, or whatever they have in France. And that, it turns out that was a genius move. It was a hell of a gamble. We could have had literal Nazis in charge of the French Parliament for the next few years, which would have laid down the red carpet for Marine Le Pen, Marine Le Putin, to take over in 3 years' time when we have the next presidential elections in France. But by the looks of it, the threat from the right has been neutered for now. And also, the left are actually getting together and having conversations, which is a really good thing. I know that no bloc has got an outright majority, but the two biggest majorities are the left and the centre, which is much more better than the Nazis coming in first or second. So it's all really good. It's all really good. Loki's children today is Catherine or Catherine Day. It's Catherine with a Y, actually, K and a Y. Anyways, vote reform in 2029, people, says Alfie. No. I often find that Phil is on the money more than Alistair and Rory. Crazy, isn't it? Phil really knows his stuff. He's a very clever man. Yes. He makes me feel like a junior partner whenever we're doing our discussions. He is across his brief like very few people are out there. A lot of us are like talking heads. Sometimes we feel a little bit out of our depth sometimes when we're talking about all this. It's a lot of information to take in. But no, I think he did. I think he consistently hits the right notes, should I say. Especially when it comes to things like Labour's relationship with the EU and what it's going to do about things like trans rights and stuff like that, which I feel like I get concerned about. And then along comes Uncle Phil, and he kind of like just tempers it down a bit, and he's like, pardon me, it's not as bad as you think it is, which is good. I wonder why Phil doesn't get hired as a political analyst. He doesn't look at the picture and then some. He does look at the picture and then some, sorry. This type of analysis shames BBC or Sky. Never mind paper media, says Moya Man. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're right, Sam. I think I moved that we rename Phil to Phil Stradamus. Well, yeah, I did write to him last night asking him for the lottery numbers for the weekend. But he said if he was going to do that, it would be the Euro Millions because the other one's not worth it. And I'm like, not worth it. Classic mathematician. Well done to Brian Ferguson, who's been a member for 12 months. Hello, Brian. Mystic Phil, political clairvoyance. Yeah, Johnny Cophead. That's exactly it. That is exactly it, my friend. It still baffles me that Labour didn't take Phil's offered help on the panel. Yeah, he did at the conference. Yeah, but do you know what? At the end of the day, it's kind of irritating. But let's face it. We absolutely, Labour wiped the floor with the Tories in that election. There were 251 Tory MPs now queuing outside the job centre looking for a job for a posh Harlem monkey, or looking for a rich idiot. Okay, can we get some rich idiots in here, please? And what I think is fantastic about what's happened now with these scumbags who were in the Tory party but are now, been yeeted out. Like, they're no use. They're no use to government box news. Because they're no power. They're no use to Civitas, the IEA, or the LGB Alliance, or those scumbags in 55 Tufton Street. They're no use to them anymore. And you know what the right are like. They're ruthless. They'll just chuck them away. And I know it wasn't just Labour who beat all those Tories, but the fact that the Tories lost just so many seats is absolutely remarkable. How do we get rid of Kunzberg? Well, my friend, Carol Vorderman, suggested that she should be replaced with Victoria Derbyshire. And I wholeheartedly agree, not least because Victoria Derbyshire follows me on Twitter, so I'm biased. But no, honestly, she is the absolute worst. Kunzberg is just when she, I was going to give credit to the Lib Dems as well because they played a hell of a game. Let's talk about that in a moment. But when Ed Davey was on the Laura Kunzberg show yesterday, she she said, "Oh, congratulations, I suppose." Did you see that? Did you see that? Congratulations, I suppose. How horrible do you have to be? Anyway, the Lib Dems did fantastic. 72 seats, the best result of all time for them. And it's because them and Labour had an unwritten agreement, like, we needed them to. Because don't forget, if they come in an official coalition, it halves the amount they're allowed to spend on their election campaign. And they did it smart. They tailored their campaign, just like Labour did, around the limitations of first past the post. So they looked at particular constituencies, battleground constituencies, and gave those 72 constituencies all that they had. And they won them all. Like, they did even better than the exit poll suggested. I think 61 was the exit poll figure, but they actually got 72, which was just amazing. Sean says we played a blinder. Yeah, absolutely. Getting the Tories down to 120 odd seats in the Commons. There's going to be so many Labour MPs that they were going to have to sit on the opposite benches at the back, like poking the Tories in the back of the head, going, Prime Minister's question time this week's going to be interesting. Well, I don't know how it's going to work because is Rishi Sunak still the leader? I don't know. I'm drinking Lemsip, by the way. As you might have noticed, I'm still a bit croaky, still a bit under the weather. It's not from doing the all-nighter, it's because I've actually got a cold. Which is never they Jeff True is in the chat. Good morning, Jeff True. My money is on PR being introduced during the King's speech. Oh, they didn't really mention it in the manifesto. I mean, if we did have PR, Reform would have got a lot of seats. It would have got as many seats as the Lib Dems, really. Which, is that an argument for PR? But as Femi pointed out at the time, if you added up the Lib Dem seats, the Green seats, the Plaid Cymru, the SNP and Labour, that the progressive vote is way over 50%. I mean, way over 50%. But because of first past the post, and this is remarkable, over 500 of the 650 seats in Parliament are now held by centre or centre-left progressives. After 14 years of darkness, we're now seeing these little rays of light. But like I said, with Labour have got a lot of ground. I mean, Labour have got a lot of they've got to hit the ground running, which they have already over the weekend. Some really inspired appointments that Kat was talking about earlier. And also just having people who were across their brief. Don't forget nearly everyone who got a position in the actual cabinet had been in the shadow cabinet in the same position for months, if not years. And so it's not like what the Tories did. They just played musical chairs. So someone who was in charge of health would be in charge of education. They might be in charge of the culture, media, and sport, or whatever. They just knock them around. Whereas in this situation, you've got people who have basically trained up in that department before actually stepping into it to take it over for real. Which is, again, you've got that expertise. You've got the adults back in the room. I can't think of a better way of putting it. We've got actual grown-ups running the country for the first time in 14 years. Not motivated by greed or envy or by making lots of money, but motivated by wanting to fix Britain, but motivated by the public good. And I don't think Labour are all angels by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think they're all geniuses, but they are certainly competent. And I think that given what they've already chosen to do this weekend, if we can get the prison population down, I mean, you do know that because of the Tories, our prisons will be full next week. By next week, we have 82,000 prison places and we'll have 83,000 prisoners to go into those prison places. Labour can do a really good job of commuting sentences, especially for people who are in jail for like non-violent offences, like protesting in the wrong place. And that old idea of, crime and punishment, we've got to punish these people, needs to be swept away, because it's really, again, like nearly everything the Tories ever did, it makes no moral sense, but also it doesn't make any ethical sense. Maybe I should have said that the other way around. It doesn't make any ethical sense, but also it makes no economic sense. It just doesn't. Like they don't think about how much this stuff costs. The first thing that Starmer did was he said, "Yep, the Rwanda scheme is dead. That's it." The Tories spent hundreds of millions of pounds of your money on a gimmick. Didn't work, didn't deter anyone. There are more people coming over than ever before, despite the two people that Rishi spoke to in Calais who were like, "Oh, I'm not going over there because I've been put off by that Rwanda thing." Yeah, all right, mate, whatever. It's again not just morally abhorrent but economically illiterate, which sums up 14 years of Tory rule. That was like literally the first thing they did, and thank God, because that's not the way to deal with the situation that we've got with people trafficking gangs and people coming in. Johnny Copperhead, thank you so much for the £5 super chat. My Morhosian prediction is Labour will promise a referendum on electoral reform in the 2029 manifesto. Yeah. Let's just talk about this for a moment, Johnny. Thank you very much for the super chat. I think you're absolutely right, and not necessarily because we on the left have been asking for electoral reform for a long time, but because now the people on the right are asking for it. When you've got the likes of Farage and Tyson that go, "Oh, this isn't fair. We got X many million votes, but we only got 5 seats," and the Greens are sitting there going, "Welcome to the party, pal." I think that's important, but along with that, there needs to be reform, not just of how we vote. If we're gonna have to have ID to vote, then I think that Tony Blair's idea of having digital ID, great, do it, absolutely do it, because then everyone can vote. And also it will help with criminality and things like that. I have no problem with it. I know there was an issue back in the God, what was it? It was the early 2000s, wasn't it? When Labour were mooting the idea of bringing in an ID card, and they never did. I mean, it was really fought against by the Conservatives. But a friend of mine who's also on the left, he pointed out that in Rwanda in 1994, one of the things on the ID card was your ethnicity, whether you were Tutsi or whether you were Hutu. Hutu, sorry. And essentially, when that massacre started, so it was the Hutus killing the Tutsis, if you didn't have an ID card because you'd lost it or whatever, they would assume you were Tutsi. And if you did have an ID card and it said Tutsi on it, they killed you. And so we've got to be very careful about what goes on those cards, just in case. But to say you are a British citizen, you're without needing your ethnicity or without needing your sexual orientation or anything like that, that'd be good. But also, it's got to come in with rules tightening up the kind of shit that Reform pulled in this election, which is this, and I've spoken about this before. There are no rules on the internet. If I go round Richmond with leaflets saying "Get rid of Sunak, throw him in the bin," I've got to have this printed, and at the bottom here, in very, very small letters, you see the little small print there. We've got the person who published it, the person who promoted it, the person who printed it, their address, their company registration number details, a credit for that photo of Rishi Sunak on there as well. All that kind of stuff needs to be on the leaflet. However, if you are simply making a website making memes, and you have a bot farm, you have AI hooked up so people think they're having conversations with a real person who's saying, "Oh, vote reform." There's no rule against that. There's no law. There's no guidelines or anything. The internet is still the Wild West. And where that might be defensible 25 years ago when the internet was in its infancy, when Google was only 1 year old, and we were all still using Netscape Navigator, that would be excusable. But now in 2024, they still haven't updated things. So that needs an overhaul. The House of Lords needs an overhaul. The way it's set up. I mean, obviously Starmer's using it for good at the moment to bring in people to be in his cabinet, which you can only do if they are an MP or they're in the House of Lords. So he's elevated people to the House of Lords in order to get them around the cabinet table or become ministers of state, which you can do if they're in the House of Lords. So it's a handy mechanism for being able to get people from industry, from backgrounds in a particular field, experts in a particular field like Patrick Vallance, to be the Minister for Science, for instance, another inspired appointment by Starmer, which actually surprised Phil. If you watch Phil's video from I think yesterday or Saturday, he put a video up talking about the appointments that actually surprised him, which we're great, we're absolutely fantastic. Number 3, the system has to be corrected or Tory trash will be back one day. Yeah, very true, Richard. So if we are going to have if we are going to have PR, then we have to have a fair campaign system where people can't game the system, where those scumbags at Refuck can't just use loads of their Kremlin money or wherever they get their money from to waste to spend on manipulating people. We saw this in the Brexit fraudulendum. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on that, but the number one priority right now for this government is the economy. I know I bang on about this probably a little bit too much, but type in GDP UK into Google and it'll give you a nice little chart, and you can see 2007 was the peak. And since then, the economy's barely grown. It was around $3 trillion in 2007. It is now around $3 trillion. There was a big drop off after the credit crunch, obviously, but then things started to pick up again thanks to the economic package that was put in by and adopted around the world, by the way, by the it was come up with by Gordon Brown and the then Chancellor Alistair Darling, and it was adopted around the world. I mean, Britain really led the way in recovering from the credit crunch, holding emergency meeting with chancellors and presidents and prime ministers from around the world, and the economy did start to recover, and you can see it going up and up and up, and it gets to around $3 trillion again. So it was at $3 trillion in 2007, and then probably about 9 years later, it's finally back at around $3 trillion. Now that could have happened a lot faster, except for Tory austerity. Tory austerity, again, it made no moral sense. It made no economic sense. If you want to grow the economy, the worst thing you can possibly do is take money off consumers so that all the money they have is being spent on rent and food and heating. That means that they've got no extra money to spend on clothes, spend on beer, spend on, transportation, spend on other things that you really want them to spend money on, because that's how these companies make all their money and that's how you stimulate the economy. The Tory government thinking that by taking money from poorer people is the way to stimulate the economy is just batshit insane. It's demonstrably untrue. Again, economically illiterate and ethically reprehensible. But that's what they did. But anyway, it was back, right? Back about 9 years after the credit crunch, 8 years after the credit crunch, the economy was back on around $3 trillion. And then what did we do? We voted for Brexit. Oh, another economic downturn. Hooray! Bam, 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 bam. Goes the chart. And then it starts to recover, but then along comes COVID. Bam, 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 down, down, down. And then finally in 2022, we were around $3 trillion. And you can look it up. I mean, I'm not just pulling stats out my arse here. Just go and have a look. Type in GDP UK and over time and have a look. And I know other countries have struggled as well, but we didn't have to. And like the fact that we're no longer the 5th biggest economy in the world because we've been overtaken by India. I mean, that's understandable in a way because India's got a population of 1.4 billion and we're a lot smaller than that. So yeah, I kind of get that. But at the same time, we were on course to overtake Germany in terms of GDP. We were on course to overtake Germany. And then along come the Tories, along comes Brexit, and they ruin it all. They ruin it all. If you got a cold, you should be in bed, says Samantha Patrick. Well, this is the problem with working for yourself, isn't it? And Uncle Phil's gone to Aussie this morning. He's having his stitches out in his head. So well, we had Kat at the beginning. She was great. I thought she was wonderful. Round of applause for Kat. You could use the current ID cards used for foreign stroke non-UK residents as a baseline model for national ID card. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the national ID card. I really don't. I know some people think that it's oppressive, but some of the most socialist regimes in the world have ID cards. And as long as it doesn't have personal information on you and it's not held in some computer bank, so it's got, QR code or magnetic strip or something, doesn't actually refer to a file on you that tells you your political persuasion, etc., then I don't have a problem with it. I've got my ID, which is my passport, and a lot of people do, but I'm a white middle-aged middle-class kid. I've got a passport. I travel. A lot of people don't. They're expensive. They're £100 now for a passport, give or take. If you have a driving license, passport, even bus pass, you're halfway there. Indeed. Hopefully, the rest get richer and the poor get poorer will be curtailed, if not reversed. Well, that's the hope. So, yeah, first of all, for Labour, it's the economy. Before anything else, before voting reform, before the reform of the House of Lords, before anything else. But also, it's the NHS, obviously, which is a huge problem, the prisons, but our relationship, not just with our continent, not just with Europe, which obviously David Lammy was going out this weekend to go and meet his counterparts, but also our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with the devolved nations of the United Kingdom. The Tories were so dismissive of Wales, and there were no Tory MPs left in Wales. Fantastic. Probably as a result of how cruel and dismissive they were of Wales. They only ever spoke about Wales if they wanted to say, oh, well, the NHS in Wales is doing even worse than the NHS in England. Ha, 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 ha. And it's like, well, at least in Wales, they get free prescriptions. We don't get that in England. And then Scotland, the way that the Tories treated Scotland is just absolutely reprehensible. And I'm a bit upset, actually, because all of the borders, all the Scottish borders went to Tory, and I was hoping to walk from Land's End to John O'Groats without having to go through a Tory constituency. But it creates this sort of barrier, this wall of ice, if you like, across the country. If you have a look on the map, what were you thinking? Why did you vote Tory? What? Anyway, I'm so proud of my home country for that. No damn Tories, says 31 players. It's wonderful. Cornwall is now completely Tory free for the first time ever, I think. So many places have just ditched the Tories left, right, and centre. And you know what I say to the Tories right now? Bring on the circular firing squad. Lemons. I'm going to just jump to the papers for a moment, and then I'm going to crawl back into bed. We've got far right thwarted by shock win for left in French elections. That's on the in the Independent, and we've got Emma Raducanu there. Unfortunately, lost her game in the third set. She came back in the second set. She was really good, but tears of joy as emotional. Lewis Hamilton wins 9th British Grand Prix, but in the Independent and the Times, not Lewis Hamilton not as photogenic as Emma, obviously. Hard left leader claims victory in French election shock. Hard left. I mean, all right. They want to try and make this sort of false equivalency between the hard left and the hard right, as if they're the same, and they're really, really not. You've got a group of people who want to help people and make the world a better place, and then you've got this people on the other side who just want to, make everyone hate each other, blame immigrants for everything, and want to feather their own nests with the help of Vladimir Putin. Millions to work from the beach this summer. This is about people who work from home, but now work from the beach, which I think is great. Homes on the Greenbelt in new dash for growth. Labour to ease building rules and fight NIMBYs. Brilliant. And it's not on the Greenbelt. This is disingenuous from the Murdoch-owned Times, who are not happy with Labour because Labour had a meeting with them. Well, someone from Labour had a meeting, might be Rishi Sunak, last week, and they said, "You're not really serious about this press reform, are you?" And he was like, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Okay, we're not going to support you then." So they're going to be all over it. But Labour to ease building rules and fight NIMBYs. Yeah, absolutely needs to be done urgently. We need to start building houses. And when people moan about it, we need to tell them to shut the fuck up, because we can't have an entire generation of young people who can never afford a house, never afford to get the deposit together for a house. Daily Express, our challenge to Labour in shaping Britain's future. Sorry, I'm just going to say this on behalf of everyone who voted for Labour and the Lib Dems and the Greens and the SNP and Plaid Cymru, which is a lot more people than voted for the Tories or the people who read the parties that the people who read the Express want. Fuck off. Okay, so moving on. Daily Express was in charge for 14 years and they made an absolute arse of it. They're not in a position to be making demands. Chancellor, I'll make every Brit better off. Rachel Reeves' vow as she exposes Tories' 58 billion lost tax take. That is money that people have avoided paying. That is money that they've wasted on crap like the Rwanda scheme and the do you remember the app? Do you remember Dado Harding with the app? 37 billion was allocated to that. It wasn't all spent. 37 billion allocated to an app. And we could have just had the same one that everyone else was using in Europe, which worked. But no, we couldn't have that. It had to be British. It had to be different and British. It had to be British exceptionalism, along with the British satellites we were going to have. Do you remember that? Oh my God. It's dark, dark days. And then Drinkle, Shrinkle, Winkle. Apparently, if you drink beer by the pool, then you suffer from brewer's droop. Oh, when I was younger, I didn't know. I heard the term brewer's droop, and do you know what I thought it was? I thought, because I was a kid, all right? Just give me a second here. I thought it was, like when people drink loads of booze and their sort of face sort of droops down. I thought that's what it meant. I was very innocent back then. Emma on the front cover of the Daily Telegraph. It's really funny that the person who lost the sporting thing is on the front cover, and the guy who won his first Grand Prix in years, British Grand Prix, his 9th British Grand Prix, is nowhere to be seen. Oh no! There's a tiny picture of Hamilton kissing his trophy there. Labour to bring back housing targets. Good. Shock defeat for Le Pen as Macron's alliance holds on. Good. I mean, imagine this. Starmer already at work on Brexit deal. Good. Blow for Braverman's bid for leadership. Good. New drug boosts IVF success rate by 20%. Good. And passengers in £100 million flight delay lawsuit. Good. There's just like loads of good news on the front of even the Telegraph, even the Tory Graph newspaper. Surprise surge for left pushes French far right into third place, thank God. And Reeves there, I'll rip up rules on planning within days, which is fantastic. And there you go. 15 of my female friends have walked out on their marriages, and every woman will understand why, says the Daily Mail. Well, maybe their partner read the Daily Mail. Labour heading for new Brexit clash with the EU on extra migrants. Well, we'll see about that. And France's leftist alliance on track to halt rise of Penn's RN, the National Front. It's not called that anymore, but it basically is. Which is also awesome. Also awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna get off now. It feels weird to have this much good, says Vortex Lisa. I know it does. There's so much more to talk about, but as you can hear, my voice is going. So I'm gonna call it there. Phil will be back in the morning at 9:30. I'm not going to be doing a show later. I'm going to be working on some behind the scenes things for the exciting new shows we've got lined up for Politics Social. So please keep on watching the channel. Subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and you'll get to hear about all the new stuff that's coming through. Don't you think our country's fortunes and losses are setting an example for elections in other countries? Well, I hope so. I hope people are looking at what happened in the UK. They're looking at our economy, looking at our society. They're looking at how foreign direct investment has gone off a cliff. as a result of decisions taken by the ruling party of, dickheads, rich people, idiots, morons, incapable arsewits. And yeah, hopefully they're looking at that and going, yeah, that's what happens when you put dickheads in charge of a country. In the same way that if you put dickheads in charge of a company, the company will fail. If you put dickheads in charge of anything, you will have a bad outcome. Garbage in, garbage out. The old rule of programming. Get well soon, Graham. Nice to have some good news for once, says Shinzed. And I'm going to end it on that. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for so many of you for staying up with us on Thursday night. That was something else. That really was something else that night. It was a fantastic party. Our picture of us celebrating and video of us celebrating was broadcast all over the world and in newspapers all over the world, which was phenomenal. And yeah, and then to have Carol Vorderman turn up just at the Airbnb where we were staying was something else. And then to cap it off, I think the question has to be, were you still up for Truss? We were. I was planning to end the broadcast a little bit earlier than I actually did, but I was just hanging on for Truss, and then she went. It was beautiful. It was cool. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like I say, Phil will be back at 9:30 tomorrow. Thanks for this chat. Thanks for the super chat. Give us a like on the way out. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.